Welcome to my final presentation for my capstone project at Arizona State University. This presentation explores World War II's global impact and examines the connection between the Manhattan Project and Congolese uranium. The path to Hiroshima and Nagasaki extended far beyond the atomic cities of Hanford, Oak Ridge, and Los Alamos. Congolese uranium fueled the Manhattan Project's atomic bombs and led to a unique diplomatic collaboration between the United States and Belgium that altered the colonial structure of the Belgian Congo. Decades of imperialistic ideologies embedded in the Belgian Congo with the King Leopold regime permitted a new era of colonial exploitation by the Belgian government in the Congo during World War II. The Manhattan Project's dependence on high-grade uranium and the subsequent tripartite agreement of 1944 between Belgium, Britain, and the United States contradicted the self-determination ideal of the 1941 Atlantic Charter signed by Allied nations, endorsed imperialism, and prolonged Belgian colonial rule. The intersection of World War II, the Manhattan Project, Union Miniere, and Congolese uranium exposed the destructive nature of resource exploitation in colonial territories. In October 1941, President Roosevelt consented to the creation of the Manhattan Engineering District and granted General Leslie Groves full military command of the Manhattan Project in September 1942. During World War I, Union Miniere accidentally discovered uranium ore at their Shinkolobwe mine in the Congo. The vast stockpiles of unused, high-grade uranium at Shinkolobwe powered the atomic bombs dropped at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Congolese uranium connected the Manhattan Project and the United States with Belgian colonial rule after the two countries signed a secret tripartite agreement in September 1944. The tripartite agreement contradicted the self-determination ideal outlined in President Roosevelt's 1941 Atlantic Charter. The Atlantic Charter addressed the oppression of occupied territories in Europe and the Pacific and established the doctrine of the right of all peoples to choose the form of government under which they will live. Though the Atlantic Charter applied only to nations occupied by Axis powers, Roosevelt viewed the document as a template for either the full or gradual independence of colonial regions after the war ended. The irony of the tripartite agreement is found within Roosevelt's anti-colonial stance during World War II. Roosevelt envisioned an international trusteeship after the war to further the political, social, and economic advancement of territories and transition colonial holdings toward self-government. Roosevelt had to ascertain the length of the tripartite agreement, and the newfound importance of uranium would extend Belgian colonial rule and delay any plans for gradual Congolese self-government or independence. The first sale of Congolese uranium between Edgar Sanjay, managing director of Union Miniere in the United States, and Lieutenant Nichols of the Manhattan Engineering District in the fall of 1942 embodied Belgium's exploitation of the Congo during World War II. Persuaded to move stockpiles of mined uranium from Shinkolobwe to the United States after Germany invaded Belgium, Sanjay transferred uranium to Staten Island. In a post-war interview, Nichols stated the initial purchase agreement was 7 to 8 sentences and written on a yellow legal pad. In a matter of hours, Sanjay traded away one of the Congo's most valuable resources. Following negotiations between Nichols and Sanjay in September of 1942, the Office of Strategic Services established a spy network in October in the Congo. The establishment of the spy network in the Congo to protect uranium reserves signified the United States' newfound willingness to partake in imperialistic exploitation and discount the principle of self-determination in the Atlantic Charter. After an American Combined Policy Committee meeting in March 1943, the committee decided the deposits in the Belgian Congo should be exploited as rapidly as possible. Edgar Sanjay's sale of Congolese uranium to the Manhattan Project initiated a diplomatic relationship of dual exploitation between the United States and Belgium at the expense of the Congo. Belgian officials aspired to impress the United States with their contributions to the war to secure a post-war alliance. However, Belgium's rapid capitulation to Germany and tensions between Belgium's government in exile and King Leopold III tarnished Belgium's image. King Leopold's decision to remain in occupied Belgium led outside leaders to question his loyalty to the exiled government, and communist Belgian resistance members clashed with the government in exile in London. Despite concerns about Roosevelt's anti-colonial ideologies, the Belgian government in exile understood the need to secure a reciprocal alliance with the United States to protect their economic interests abroad. Belgium's post-war economic recovery depended on the Congo's valuable resources. To financially recover from the war, reinstate the government in exile, and lessen communist influence, and maintain their colonial empire, the Belgian government needed the United States and President Roosevelt to forego the ideals outlined in the Atlantic Charter and support Belgian rule in the Congo. The complex diplomatic aims of the United States regarding uranium in 1943 and 1944 contributed to the inconsistency of the United States' adherence to the Atlantic Charter with regards to the Belgian Congo. By the end of 1943, two goals superseded the acquisition of uranium for the Manhattan Project: the denial of uranium ores to Axis countries and securing Congolese uranium to fund post-war atomic research. Mounting tensions between the Soviet Union and the United States influenced the United States' vision for post-war security via atomic dominance. After defeating German forces at Stalingrad and regaining the offensive on the Eastern Front, Stalin entered the Tehran Conference in a position of considerable power. Britain, falling behind the United States in military and economic capacity, shifted the balance of power within the Grand Alliance and foreshadowed the rise of the United States and the Soviet Union as global powers. Several years after World War II ended, General Groves stated, "There was never, from about 2 weeks from the time I took charge of this project, any illusion on my part but that Russia was our enemy. I didn't go along with the attitude of the country as a whole that Russia was a gallant ally." In late September of 1944, the United States, Britain, and Belgium finalized the secret tripartite agreement. The tripartite agreement guaranteed the United States and Britain 3.4 million pounds of uranium and the first right of refusal to all Congolese uranium for 10 years after Union Miniere fulfilled the initial contract of 3.4 million pounds. Belgium and the United States achieved their diplomatic aims, while the interference of outside nations heightened the consequences of colonial oppression for Congolese natives. The ease with which Belgium and the United States stripped uranium from the Congo embodied the destructive nature of colonial regimes in Africa. The rise of pseudo-scientific racial hierarchy theories in late 19th century Europe legitimized European colonization of the African continent and warranted the theft of African resources. Prior to the first sale of Congolese uranium to the Manhattan Project, decades of colonial exploitation by Belgium permeated the landscape of the Congo. The establishment of the Congo Free State in 1885 by Belgium's King Leopold II initiated a 20-year reign of terror over Congolese natives and set a precedent for the future exploitation of the Congo's resources by Belgium and the United States. Embedded in Belgium's ownership of the Congo and the mindset of General Groves, the narrative of resource entitlement resurfaced during World War II. The Congo served as Belgium's personal reserve of assets during World War II and guaranteed the country's loans. From the beginning of the Manhattan Project, General Groves focused on gaining full control of the world's uranium supply. In an internal memo, Groves wrote, "Allow nothing to stand in the way of achieving as complete control as possible of world uranium supplies." By extension of the tripartite agreement, the United States supported Belgium's and Union Miniere's imperialistic exploitation of resources and racist ideologies. The gravity of World War I permitted the return of unsavory working conditions amongst concessionary companies. During World War I, Belgium conscripted Congolese natives, and the rapid growth of the mining industry initiated the return of physical abuse amongst mining companies. World War II further exacerbated the social, political, and economic landscape of the Congo. Wages for concessionary workers did not keep pace with wartime inflation. The cost of living in the Katanga region increased by 63% from May 1940 to December 1943. Between 1938 and 1944, forced labor increased from 38% to 78%, and by 1944, conscripted labor increased from 60 days to 120 days per year. The worsening economic conditions of World War II heightened existing social constraints of segregation and racial inferiority in the Congo. Tensions between concessionary workers and Union Miniere culminated in the death of 100 Congolese natives after a company-wide strike in December 1941. Unhappy with increased quotas, inflation, and low wages, workers walked out of Union Miniere job sites. According to the official Belgian narrative, protesters became angry and threw stones at force publique troops. Viewed as an act of aggression, soldiers retaliated and fired into the crowd, killing 48 strikers and wounding another 150. Within 24 hours, around 50 of the wounded succumbed to their injuries. The Union Miniere strike became a microcosm of the social and political upheaval the tripartite agreement prolonged. In June 1945, the Evening Sun of Baltimore published an article entitled, "In the Belgian Congo, Welfare Work for Miners," that embodied the inherent fallacies found in paternalistic ideologies within colonial regimes. The article promoted the benefits provided by Union Miniere to Native workers, including prenatal care for pregnant women, family mining camps, and medical facilities for sick or injured miners. In reality, the benefits were a facade. Implemented in the 1930s, Union Miniere's stabilization policy sought to lessen the burden of recruiting Native workers by controlling the labor force from birth onwards through family mining camps and arranged marriages. The importance of secrecy surrounding Shinkelobi and its uranium deposits after World War II necessitated the continuation of Belgian rule. Shinkelobi reopened in March 1945 and remained the single greatest source of uranium in the late 1940s and early 1950s for the United States. Through strict control of the workforce, Union Miniere employed natives unfamiliar with uranium to prevent employee theft, information breaches, and infiltration by communist spies. The Tampa Bay Times published an article in August 1950 entitled, "When it comes to uranium, Belgium's booming Congo is deaf, dumb, blind." Of the 60 Belgian managers interviewed at Shinkelobi, all admitted that Congolese miners did not understand the importance of what was being mined. The importance of uranium to the Manhattan Project during World War II and the threat of a dominant post-war Soviet Union dictated the United States negotiate outside the parameters of the Atlantic Charter to secure vast reserves of Congolese uranium. The tripartite agreement temporarily silenced years of President Roosevelt's anti-colonial rhetoric. The resurgence of the Soviet Union in Eastern Europe influenced General Groves and the Roosevelt administration's stance on controlling the world's supply of high-grade uranium. The racial hierarchy ideologies found in colonialism permitted the gross exploitation of two natural resources, rubber and uranium, in the 19th and 20th centuries in the Belgian Congo. King Leopold II died a millionaire. Edgar Sanjay profited handsomely. Union Miniere transitioned to Umicore, a global materials technology and recycling enterprise, and the United States advanced their nuclear weapons program. Recipients of vast wealth, the perpetrators of Belgian colonial rule exploited the nation's resources, while Congolese natives suffered immeasurable atrocities. Once uranium became the focus of a post-war America, the resource's value subjected the Congo to further Belgian rule. The United States had no plans to relinquish control of Congolese uranium to other nations. Colonial rule permitted the strict oversight of native workers and maintained the secrecy of Congolese uranium exports to the United States. The tripartite agreement prolonged colonial rule in the Congo and diminished the ideal of self-determination in the post-war Congo. The Shinkelobi mine, the Belgian Congo, and the forced contributions of Congolese natives remain the forgotten entities of World War II's global impact.